What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. This is TWA Motorsports, and today we are going to be working on the Corvette. Now, I talked about in the last video, or a couple videos back, that everything in my garage was broken, and even my old Chevy pickup wouldn't start. So the CTSV had a leaky strut. The Corvette, I'm pretty sure, blew out the rear main seal. The Trans Am is just, man, I don't even know about the Trans Am. It's got a ton of stuff that it needs. And well, all to fix an oil leak. That's just how these projects go. And then my old truck, like I said, I went to start it the other day to get my son from school, and the battery is dead. So anyway, I've had a rough go of it lately as far as cars go, and I'm sick of having tons of projects and not getting any of them accomplished. Now the Trans Am that you see here, you know, it's gonna get finished, but I want to drive some stuff. I'm constantly working on stuff, and I want to show you guys some driving videos. So I did wrap the CTSV up, so that is back and going. But today we're going to tackle the ZR1. And if you caught that video, you know that I'm pretty sure that I blew out the rear main seal. Now, we're going to try a couple things before we tackle the project of pulling this all apart, which is a huge undertaking. It's not that it's hard, it's just that it's really time consuming. And well, I don't want to do that right now because I have this stack of parts over here for the Trans Am, and sorry if my light's getting in your way, but I wanted to show you guys kind of what was going on. But you can see the oil leak here, and it just kind of blew down the entire back of the car. The whole back of the car is coated. So today we are going to clean all of this up. We are going to retorque the bolts to the oil pan just in case they came loose. I don't think that they did, but we're going to retorque them anyway, and then we're going to switch out catch cans. So let this be a lesson to any of you, like I said in the last video, or the broken video, that if you have a boosted car, get a vented catch can. I actually went with Mighty Mouse, and I'll show you that here in just a second. But let's get started with the I'm going to go grab the torque wrench. We're going to retorque these, and then we'll start the cleaning process. All right, guys, we're going to start with the rear two, which these go to 106 inch-pounds. These are the only two that get that. The rest of them all the way around the pan get 18, but we're going to start here at the 106, and then we're going to move to the 18s. Now, it's kind of a bear to get to. You're going to have to use a swivel, and I really don't like using a swivel with a torque wrench, but that's the only way to get to it unless you want to pull a ton of stuff out of the way. I just don't know how accurate it gets with that. But we're going to start there, and then we'll start the cleaning process. Well, I tightened all those, and not one of them was loose. So that's good news, but chances are, like I said, this is going to have to come apart. But let's go ahead and I'm going to get some simple green and probably some soap, some soapy water, and start to clean the bottom of it off because, like I said, it drug oil all the way down the bottom. So we're going to clean the entire bottom side of the car. Now, I got most of the front part to about right here. I ran out of film. Sorry about that, guys. But you can see how much oil flew back and hit this. So chances are this is a lost cause, and this is all going to have to come apart anyway. But you know, we're gonna keep cleaning, and once we get it all finished, like I said, we're gonna put that catch can in and just see if maybe it's still leaking. Now, if it is, obviously this is all going to have to come out and it'll all get cleaned again. But we're going to keep moving on. I'm going to switch over back to paper towels on this just to get the big stuff off, and then we'll go back to a microfiber. Well, we got all the oil cleaned off the bottom of the car, and boy was it a mess. I had a ton caked up here on the transmission, and I went over it twice. I didn't show you guys all of it because, well, it was kind of boring to watch, but it wasn't real fun to do. So let's get this thing down on the ground, and let's see if we can get the old catch can out of the way, because I did have a catch can on it before, it just wasn't vented. And let's see what the Mighty Mouse one looks like. Well, kind of like I thought, the battery's completely dead, and the car is disgusting. I mean, I feel bad for leaving this thing the way it is, but we need to use the manual key back here, if I can find out where it goes, to open the hatch. There we go. Well, now we got the battery tender hooked up. Like I said, I think this battery's probably trash. I need to drive this car more. I don't know why I just let it set. You can see how dusty and nasty it is. It's gross. So let's go show you here what catch can we have now, which is the Elite Engineering catch can. And like I said, you really need a vented catch can on a modified motor. This would have probably been fine for a stock motor, but for this application, it's just not working out. But the cool thing is, I think I'm going to use this on the Trans Am when I get it back together, and I might have to change the mounting bracket a little bit. But let's get this old one out of the way, and actually first let's go open the Mighty Mouse one and take a look at what it's got. Well, let's take a look at everything that comes with the kit. So obviously it comes with instructions and the bracket that mounts it to the oil tank. You got, I opted for the billet piece that actually mounts the can. We've got the can itself, which I went ahead and pushed the filter on. You need to make sure that you push it all the way down so it's seated up against the can. The one cool thing I like about his too is it has a window so you can kind of see when it's full. None of the other kits seem to offer that, and I don't know why. That's a pretty easy install, I'm sure, to make it, I don't know, to me it's worth it. What else we got here? We got the adapters to adapt from the tank and from the piece that goes. Now on the ZR1, this is going to go on the passenger side, or on the driver's side in the rear. There's not an oil fill on the front side like the standard C6. And of course we got the hoses and lines. So all in all, it looks like a really nice kit, really well made. It just seems like everything that he makes is just really, really good quality. So let's get that other one out of the way, and we might be able to try to mount, at least get that mounting bracket mounted without pulling a bunch of lines out first. But let's get that old can off. Don't you guys just hate when you buy performance stuff and then you replace it with different performance stuff because it didn't work? I think it sucks. Anyway, we're gonna start by clipping all of these zip ties that I have holding things into place. Obviously there's going to be a little bit different routing method on this, so this won't work. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up the lines that it's plugged into, which one's on the throttle body, or right behind the throttle body on the actual blower itself, and the other one goes down into the valley. It's going to be kind of tricky to get to, I'm sure, with the belt and everything, because I'm pretty sure I put these lines on when I put the blower together, but that's how it goes sometimes. This one in here is going to be the tricky one. Actually, it was easier than the top one. Now I got some towels because I have a feeling that there's some oil going to fall out. Now, of course, the line doesn't want to come off, which is pretty normal once the engine's cycled a couple times. It just gets stuck on there. There we got one. Try to keep it facing up so now the oil drains all over everything under the hood. And there's the second one. All right, now that one's unhooked. Now this old one bolted on with just one of the hood releases, and it's just a 10 millimeter, so we'll get it out of the way. Trying to keep these up. There we go. Now there's nothing wrong with this Elite engineering cam, like I said. I mean, aside from it's not vented, it's really well made too. It's a billet piece, looks really nice. It's just not cutting it for the power level that we're at anymore. The old one's out. Well, now that the old one's out of the way, get my camera adjusted here, I went ahead and put that 10 millimeter back in, and we need to take the clip off. If you can see, there's a clip right here that mounts this wiring harness, and we need to get it out of the way because that is where the new can mounts. So I'm just going to push that out from the back side and kind of push it down out of the way, and then we'll be able to mount the new can bracket there. Now that we got that clip out of the way, we can go grab our can mount, and that's where it mounts, right here on this arm. And obviously we're going to assemble part of it as well. Now the two parts that we're going to be assembling before we get it in the car are just the bracket, that billet bracket, and the actual mounting piece. So I'm going to want this screw, this adjustment screw, I want it on the front of the car, facing the front of the car. You can put it wherever you want it. I just feel like it'd be the easiest to get to if it's mounted there. And now let's go put this in the car. One thing I want to talk about before we put it in the car is just the quality of this stuff. I mean, he not only did he put a lock washer that just barely fits in here to keep the can tight and it not back off, but the mounting washers actually have a rubber coating on the back side, so there's no rattling, or I mean, it's just a great design kit. This is like quality work that you don't see out of most manufacturers anymore. So thumbs up for him. What a great job. Now we need to mount that new piece. And so I've got a couple of these set in here, but I'm probably going to drop them because I always do. This could be interesting. Dropped it. I knew I would. This will probably be the hardest part. It's just having enough room to get in here and do what you want to do. I got one of them in. Sorry, I'm kind of putting my hand in front of the camera, but there's no real good way to show you guys what I'm doing. All right, now we just need to tighten them up. Once everything's tight, I was kind of wondering about that plug that we had to move, but it actually threads up in the inside of this. So actually really well designed, but let's grab the can and put it into place. So his instructions say to mount the PCV facing outside the fuse box. So that's what we're going to do. This is the PCV side. That guy, and that's going to mount where it's kind of route around the fuse box. And then we just need to tighten it up, which is it's a T fitting, like a T3 or a 3mm is what the piece that you have to connect here hooks up with. If you got the billet bracket. If you don't, I don't know what it comes with, but that is what this one calls for. I actually think for the ZR1, the instructions that you get are actually for a Z06, which the Z06 feeds from the actual oil fill or the oil plug that's on the passenger side front of the motor. Well, we don't feed from there. So I actually think I'm going to turn this because our feed is going to come from the driver's side in the back. And so I think I'm going to orient it to where it's actually facing like this. That way our fresh air one can go up front and our other side, or our PCV can go up front, and our other side for the actual valve cover will kind of go behind. And I'm hoping, I think there's enough room to sneak it through here. Chances are it's going to be pretty snug there because it's a pretty good size line, but I'm sure that I'll be able to snake it through somehow. Well, the unfortunate part, guys, is the next step requires us to pull off the actual valve cover, and the reason we have to do that is there's a clip inside that holds this in place. Now, I talked to David and he said that sometimes you can pop that loose. I just don't want to risk screwing something up, so we're going to take the valve cover off. So we've got to get all of this stuff out of the way, which it's really not that big a deal. We're going to take the spark plugs loose, take the coil packs off. I'm probably going to have to disconnect this fuel line. And the good thing is there's only 4 bolts that hold that on. I think I'll be able to sneak it out of the way without pulling any of this other stuff off. Just these vacuum lines, the module that is controlled for the E85 or the additional pump that I've got in place. But let's go grab some tools and get this out of the way. So the next thing I'm going to have to do in order to get that last coil pack out of the way is I'm going to have to disconnect the fuel rail. And that's not a real big deal. You just need one of these disconnect tools. I'll list that down in the description below, but slide that in, disconnect it, and it should just be able to fold out of the way. And we should have all the access that we need to go ahead and get the valve cover off at that point. So now that we got everything out of the way, and you notice that I took this back line off that goes to the oil tank over there, we can go ahead and take these 8mm out. There's only 4 of them. Once we get those loose, you don't even have to take them out. Once we get them loose, should be able to pull the valve cover the valve cover out just a little bit, go back with it, and then thread it out. Well, after getting this out, I really need a bench in here, but I'm using my deep freeze as a bench, but this literally just screws out like a regular oil fill. So I'm sure that GM uses the same the same type of valve cover on every vehicle, and so I probably could have unscrewed that, but getting the new pieces in there might not have been as easy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the new piece from the kit, and we're just going to put it in just like that one came out. It literally screws in like an oil fill cap, and then we will put the 90° on the top, and that would have probably been an issue. I mean, I probably could have put it on, but I don't have any AN wrenches, and that's a pretty big one. I don't even know that they make one that big, but I'm going to put some tape on that so I don't scratch it all up while I'm putting it in place, and that would have been really cumbersome to do back there in the very back of the motor with all that stuff in the way. So I don't think this is a bad way to do it. Actually, this is probably your easier way, is to take it out completely, and then we'll have to figure out which way we want to orient the actual 90° here. I think we're probably going to want to go down, because I can go like right above the actual bell housing and onto the other side, but we'll just have to experiment with that. But let's go ahead and get this into place, and we'll lightly screw this 90 on top. I've been test fitting this, and with that 90 on, the only real directions it can go are, it would have to go behind the blower hat, which it doesn't really fit and looks terrible. It can go this direction, which obviously we don't have enough hose, and that would look pretty terrible as well. And the only real direction it can go is down, and when we're going down, it's running into the master cylinder, or sorry, not the master, but the brake booster, before I can get a gradual bend where it doesn't kink the line. So you really need, instead of a 90 here, we need like a 150 or even a 180. I think 150 is actually what we need. So I'm going to talk to him, to David or Mighty Mouse, and see if he has that, or at least knows the size. That way we can get the correct piece, and then once we do that, we can go right up over and to the other side. And I think that we probably could do it here. I'm just afraid it puts a lot of bend in it, and I'm afraid it would really kink up. So we may have to order another part, but we will get whatever we need and get back on it. Well, guys, it is 2 weeks later, and not because it took that long to get the parts, but just because this is the next time I had a chance to work on it. But the cool thing is, you guys don't see that. It's instantaneous for people on film, so let me show you exactly what I'm talking about, why I had to go with a 150. So you can see that this runs into the brake master, or the brake booster, I mean. So that's not going to work, the 90 that comes with the kit. Now, I talked to Mighty Mouse, and he sent me a 120, which would probably get me pretty close, but I ordered a 150, which is what I think is the best option. So I'm going to take the valve cover back off. We're going to unscrew that one, put the 150 in, and we'll kind of take a look at it. I'm going to put it in loosely so I can kind of see exactly which direction I want it to go. But once we do that, we should be able to go ahead and route that line on the back side of the engine and the blower and to the other side. Now, hopefully you guys can see the 150 is a way better routing point than the 90. Obviously the 90 was running into things, but the 150 is going to put us exactly where we need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out. I'm going to tighten this up, and I will list this part down below. I don't know if Mighty Mouse can get one of these. I'm sure he probably can, but I got this through another vendor. I'm going to go ahead and hook the rubber line up to it because it's going to be hard to push it on once it's in the car, and then we will route all this back and tighten the valve cover back up. Actually, guys, I lied to you. It's going to be a way easier to go ahead. I'm going to put the fitting, the hose onto the fitting just because I can't reach back behind there once it's on. And then once the valve cover is tightened down, I'm going to reach back there and tighten the fitting onto the actual valve cover. It doesn't want to come out real easy. I'm sure if you had the power steering pump out of the way, it would be a little bit easier, but to get the valve cover in and out with that fitting on there makes it a little bit cumbersome. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and push the fitting onto the rubber piece and kind of leave it dangling down below, put the actual valve cover back on, go ahead and torque it. Now before I do that, I'm going to clean that surface up just in case any dust or debris got on there. I want to make sure that it seals up really good, and then I will thread the fitting on once the valve cover's in the car. Well, I got the valve cover in and it's just snugged down, but then I went ahead and tightened this, and it is a tight fit back here, guys. It's not the easiest thing to get to. I did go ahead and have to unplug the harness here, which I can snake back in and plug it in, but it's really, really close to the top side of this, so it's probably gonna have to face up a little bit. But now I think we're ready to start assembling everything back. Then once we get everything assembled on this side, we'll go over to the other side and hook the actual can up. First thing we're going to do on the reassembly process is I already plugged that plug back in, but we are going to tighten up the valve cover bolts, and those go to 106 inch-pounds. The next thing we need to do is plug in our E85 sensor and our jumper for our auxiliary pump. So just the same way you took it apart, if you have this stuff. If you don't, not a big deal. But that's our next step. Of course, we jump power off of a coil pack. I always use the third one because it's the closest to all the wiring. Once we got all the plugs plugged back in, we're going to go ahead and put the coil packs back into place. And while I'm plugging them in, I think it's easier if you plug them in before you start to bolt them down. There's just not a whole lot of room to sneak the plug in once they're bolted down, so make sure you're plugging them in at the same time. Now the plug wires I'll plug in afterwards, obviously, but this top connection, make sure you do it at the same time. Once you have those installed and tightened up, I'm going to go ahead and sneak my plug wires up into place. I'm going to follow the plug wires by hooking up the actual fuel line itself. That's relatively easy, it just snaps into place. And then of course, don't forget to plug in your jumper that actually powers that. Then we have our brake master that we need to put back into place. And then a couple vacuum lines. And we're about wrapped up, and we'll go to the other side. Once we got everything buttoned up on this side, everything's plugged in, routed back to where it needs to go, we're going to go back to the other side, and you can see that the line I ran back behind the motor is coming in. And like I said, I tilted this a little bit different than the instructions, just because it makes more sense to go this direction. Now, we are going to have to trim some off in order to get it to come in as straight as possible. The very important thing here is obviously you don't cut it too short. So put it up, measure it a couple times. It looks like I'm gonna have to take, maybe 6 inches off of it in order for it to plug in correctly. And then I'm going to plug this in and then tighten it up against the can. I went ahead and pushed that on, and I actually only cut about a little over 3 inches off. So it's pretty close to where it needs to be. Now, if it were in the other direction, there's just no way to make this work unless you routed it over the blower, and I just didn't like the way that looked. So went back behind the blower. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this up, and then we will work on hooking up this front line, and we'll almost be finished. So there's only one more connection we have to make, and that is from the actual can up to right behind the throttle body. So it's actually on the snout of the blower. The other thing is the old valley cover. It comes with a cap. We are going to cap that off. Just push your cap on, and let's just route this line. We may have to trim it up a little bit. I think I've got plenty here. It comes with the kit, but We're going to route that, try to follow this. I'm going to try to follow this same direction so I can kind of zip tie them all together, but then we'll be finished up. All right, so the last piece, I went ahead and measured and cut it to the length that I needed. And so we just need to push this on, and I did put a clamp, the factory clamp, on this side, and I'm going to put a clamp up against the actual snout itself. And then I'm probably going to put a clamp on the cap. I don't think you probably need one, but I'm going to put one on there just to be safe. And we're going to make sure everything's buttoned up. We're going to try to start it. Now the last thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have everything hooked back up, your fuel, all your wiring connections. Make sure there's no kinks in that new line that you put in, which it's really close back there in the back, but was able to get it over here without any kinks, and everything's nice and snug. So I have everything into place. Now it's time to fire it up, and I'm kind of nervous because obviously I don't want to put a rear main seal in this car yet, but chances are it's probably not going to fix it. But we are going to start it up. I'm going to lift the lift up just a little bit so I can see underneath, see if it's dripping any oil after I start it. And then obviously I'm going to look up here, making sure I didn't disconnect any of the fuel lines other than the main line that goes into the rail, just making sure I don't have any leaks there. Obviously we don't want to start a fire, but let's get this thing lifted up a little bit, and we're going to key it up and see if this fixed it. Well, let's talk about the bad news and a little bit of good news. So first of all, as you can see, we've got some new oil on the floor, and we have some oil dripping off the pan bolt, or the oil pan bolt that well, your drain bolt, and then on the side here, and then a little bit on the actual K-member or cradle, and it looks to be coming from the oil pan. So, you know, that's not as big of a deal as it coming from the rear main seal, and who knows, there may be a little coming from there as well, but it looks like the majority of it is coming from the pan. So I kind of cheated, and I didn't get to this bolt right under here, so we're gonna go ahead and get something on that so we can re-torque it. We're gonna clean it all off again, and well, we'll see what happens. But all in all, the install of the catch can went pretty smoothly, other than getting that fitting, which that's not a huge deal. But no leaks here on the passenger or on the driver's side. It all seems to be contained to the passenger side. Now, I did have a couple people reach out to me and say that sometimes these leak, but it looks like it's dripping from up above, and those are not actually leaking. So let's grab, I believe it's a 10 millimeter, and we're going to re-torque all of the pan bolts again, and clean off, you know, obviously the old oil or the new oil that's dripped down here, and hopefully we can maybe see the source of the oil leak. Well, we now have everything torqued down. I didn't show you guys that. I tried to, but my battery went dead and I didn't realize it. But I did re-torque the lines, that go to the oil tank. I re-torqued those. They weren't loose. Now, the one that I couldn't reach, I was able to get to with the wrench. So I just used the crow's foot on that, and it was a little loose, and that it seems to be where the leak was coming from. So we're going to start it up again, and hopefully, cross your fingers for me, guys, it is fixed. Now, chances are I'm going to have to replace the oil pan gasket, but it's not a huge undertaking. It's not as big as replacing the rear main, which obviously we will replace that when we do a clutch down the road. But it is still requires the leaf pack coming out in order to get the pan far enough down where you can get it out of the car. So hopefully we're going to start it up, like I said, and see if it fixed it. Well, guys, this is really exciting. So I started it up for the second time, and we have no leak so far. So I'm hoping right there where it was leaking, everything I torqued back up nice and tight, and it looks, crossing our fingers here, but it looks like we may have fixed the leak. It may have just been one of those, I don't know, it may have been one of those bolts that I maybe didn't get tight when I did all this, but hopefully this fixes it. Now the downside is obviously it is raining now and I can't go out and rip on it and see if that fixes the issue. But hopefully you guys like the install of the Mighty Mouse catch can, because that was ultimately what I wanted to get accomplished. Now I was hoping, crossing my fingers, that that would also fix the issue with the rear main seal. Now it doesn't look as if it was the rear main. Now obviously putting a catch can on doesn't fix a rear main, but a lot of times the gasket will go back into shape after it sets for a while if it's not completely blown out. So that we maybe got lucky. I don't think it was the rear main. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was the pan gasket. So torquing that up hopefully fixed that. But guys, ultimately we got the catch can installed, so that's what we were looking to do, and we will take it down the road in future videos and kind of see exactly, well, if it got fixed. So if you like this, smash that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed, go down, subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell icon. That way you're notified every time we drop a new video on this or any of the other cars. And well, stay tuned to see if it fixed it.